Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald. But I wonder how the bromance is going to be this evening, because Emmanuel Macron, despite all those wonderful pictures yesterday of mates and smiles addressing the joint houses of Congress, he has not held back one little bit. He has attacked nationalism. He's promoted globalism. He's even tried to redefine it as multilateralism, and I'll talk more about that as the programme goes on. But my thoughts today are very much on Boris Johnson. Now, the blonde bombshell, big personality, clever chap, writes well, electorally was very successful in London, twice became London mayor. That was quite some achievement, but I have a feeling that politically Boris is now somewhat on the wane. I'm delighted he helped with the Brexit referendum, but I don't think he's in a very good place, and my own view is after today, if he really thinks he's going to become Tory leader again, he's got another think coming. Why do I say that? Well, back in 2008, when he was the Mayor of London, he proposed amnesties for illegal immigrants. He repeated that call in early 2016, but he seemed to very quickly ditch it when the referendum campaign came along and when clearly control of borders was a big issue. Last week we saw Boris writing in the Telegraph basically saying that Brexit is not about immigration. It's about controlling our borders, meaning we will get back control, but he virtually has no intention to use it, and I attack that. But this, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, I thought Boris would have learnt from the past, but no, he wants us to consider about 10,000 illegal immigrants who've come here from Commonwealth countries who haven't broken the law in that 10-year period of time, and he thinks they should get citizenship. We're looking, guesstimates say, at between 500,000 and 700,000 people. Now, there are some who will tell you it's the only thing you can do. These people have actually been working hard, albeit part of the illegal economy. They haven't broken the law, so actually they're going to be a benefit to the country. But, you know, I've heard those arguments. There are many, many people that believe in those arguments, and I'm keen to hear from you. You know, if you think, actually, Boris is right about this, you then call me on 0345 6060 973, or perhaps like me, you think this is just the wrong message, completely wrong message, because it says to the rest of the world, do you know what? Climb on the back of a lorry, nothing bad can really happen to you, and hey, presto, in 10 years' time, you will become a British citizen. Or maybe you think there's a better way of dealing with this problem than amnesties, in which case tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and watch us on Facebook. We're live from the London studio, and comment there too. OK, let's go straight to the callers. Nick, a first-time caller to this show, who lives in Richmond. Hello, Nick.
Yes, hi there. So I wanted to say what leads into this question is, in a lot of ways, this country is a real basket case nowadays. We want to ban police all-male choirs for not being inclusive enough. A lot of people don't even believe what comes out of their own mouth in this country because of political correctness. And when it comes to the borders, it's no different. We've got so much virtue signaling, social justice warrior behaviour, leftist snowflake behaviour. Well, why do we have borders? Why do we have laws if we're not going to deal with it?
Well, it's a good question to ask Boris Johnson, who, by the way, Nick, I think, will be toasted and cheered to the rafters in Richmond and elsewhere tonight where house prices are expensive. You can just see the conversation. Oh, darling, isn't it marvellous? That nanny who came from South Africa, you know the one. She lives in a shed at the bottom of someone's garden in Ealing. She's now going to get a British passport. You know, that's the point about this, Nick, isn't it? That illegal immigrants within the economy, you know, often actually work in slave conditions. Morally, illegal immigration is wrong at every level. But why, Nick? Why, Nick, is Boris part of that set?
Well, I think it's part of this mindset of anything that hints towards nationalism is terrible, and we need this globalist operation to work. I like my flat in Richmond to be able to control its own affairs. I like a country to be able to control its own affairs.
Do you think this will damage Boris's chances of getting the top job when May goes?
I think a lot of people don't buy into this type of rhetoric. I think a lot of people are tired of it. The media is filled with these kind of leftist narratives. Politicians talk to them. I think most people just don't buy it.
No, I agree with you. Nick, I'm with you. Thank you, but I'm keen to hear the alternative view as well. You know, it's funny. Ken Clarke could have been leader of the Tory party several times. Indeed, he would have been Prime Minister, in my view, without much difficulty. He was clearly, the outstanding personality of his political generation, and yet he didn't become Prime Minister because, and I have to admire him in a way for this, even though I disagree with them, he kept to his very positive vision of the European Union membership, of going into the euro, and still, in the House of Commons, and was he 78 or whatever he is, still votes against everything. He's going to vote against us leaving the customs union. But it's been a principle through Ken's career. It's cost him the leadership of the party. It's cost him the prime ministership. I thought Boris had learnt from these mistakes of the past. And I say mistakes of the past, Boris, because your electorate, for you to get to that top job, are going to be Conservative MPs and ultimately Conservative members around the country. And I believe the vast majority of those will think that giving amnesties to illegal immigrants is plain wrong. This means he's not going to be Prime Minister. That's my view. A definite no to the amnesty, Nigel. This government still don't get it, do they? No, they don't. Although, I'll tell you someone who does really rather get it, and that's Nadeem Sahawi, the Minister for Children and Families, and he really is not very impressed with this at all. He talks about the illegal amnesty and he says, I think that it's a wrong assumption. People like myself and my parents and other immigrants will think if you're here illegally and working illegally, they'll think you shouldn't really be here. And I think that's right. I think people who have gone through the system, come to this country legally, got on, worked, integrated, paid their taxes, they will be the most angry group of people about this kind of thing happening. That's certainly my view. Grace is calling from Ealing. Good evening, Grace.
Hi. I'm always entertained to hear people like your previous caller who considers the media to be far too left-leaning, because as a 25-year-old left-leaning person, most of the media sources I see complain that the rest of the media is too right-leaning.
There is a bit of toing and froing, Grace, on this, but I think if you take the media out of it, if you look at our elected MPs in Westminster, very few of them, Grace, tomorrow morning are going to speak out as strongly as Nadeem Sahawi has today. That's really the point he was making, I think.
I think that the point he made is very good, but I think that we need to recognise that the vast majority of people who come here have come here because they were born into situations nowhere near as privileged as ours. That doesn't mean we've got space for everyone, and I don't know if an amnesty on illegal immigrants is the right thing or not, because I don't know enough about the numbers and how it would all work out. But we need to start from a position of realising that Britain has far better standards of living and far better opportunities than most of the rest of humanity will ever be lucky enough to have.
Well, Grace, let me put this to you. If an amnesty was given, in the next few months to 500,000 to 700,000 people who came here illegally, the public will not be very happy. That will then make it much more difficult for the government to grant refugee status for those who genuinely qualify for it. And I really think that's the kind of thing, Grace, that goes on here. That's where the unfairnesses perhaps occur. I've always taken the view that Britain is a country that has taken refugees, but clearly there's a limit to it. The UNHCR, Grace, said that there are 59 million people in the world displaced by war. We clearly can't take all of them, can we?
No, we can't, which is why I'm not saying that I think that this amnesty is necessarily right or wrong, because I don't feel that as a 25-year-old I know at all enough about how that would work out. But you highlighted, for example, this point about slavery. If there could be something done to find those who are here illegally and are being mistreated, then that would be very, very positive, because we need to do something about those people who are being forced to work 20 hours in grotesque conditions.
And it's happening, Grace. No, you're absolutely right. The trouble is, where do you find these people? Well, you'd have to have nighttime raids. And I talked about sheds in Ealing, but it could be anywhere, couldn't it?
I think you'd have to have some kind of solution that isn't necessarily an amnesty, but does encourage those people to come forward. And I don't know what that would look like, and I'm not saying an amnesty is the right way, but there needs to be something done to help people who are really, really suffering.
Yep, but what about those, Grace, who've simply abused the system to be here?
Well, those people hopefully will... Well, the people who have no good reason for being here perhaps will leave, and the people who obviously are genuinely criminal will go. But to some extent, or rather be locked up, but to some extent we can facilitate more people in that they do work very hard and they do provide services and they use services, but they often do far more to provide for the things.
The problem is, Grace, the problem is that illegal immigrants are outside the system. They're paid in cash. They're not paying tax. They are able, it would appear, to use public services. It was suggested the other day to me that maybe we needed ID cards. I've generally been against them, but maybe there's a point. Grace, I thank you. No one's got the perfect solution to this. Edward says on Facebook, Boris Johnson has now written off any chance of ever being Prime Minister. Nick says, illegal is illegal. They broke the law, I get on Twitter, by being and working here illegally. So it's not clean and squeaky to be a British citizen. Well, that's one message I suppose you could say. All I can say is, Boris, you got this wrong, mate. But hey, I want to hear from you. Those of you who think he's doing the right thing. And just quickly, the parents of 23-month-old Alfie Evans, who of course has been at the centre of this life support treatment battle, have had their latest legal challenge dismissed by Court of Appeal judges in London. The seriously ill toddler's parents were challenging a High Court ruling that they can't take their son to Italy for treatment. Do you know, they turned off the life support machine yesterday. He could have been in Italy by now. I'm not saying the treatment would have worked, but hey, shouldn't parents have the right to make these decisions and not the medical establishment closing ranks backed up by the court? The whole thing is disgraceful. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusive on LBC. It's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
Buy one, get one free deals on junk food are set to be banned after opposition parties gave Theresa May their backing to tackle the obesity crisis. Now, Malcolm Clark is Prevention Policy Manager. Why should people who eat responsibly, who are thin, not be able to avail themselves of offers that keep their supermarket bill down?
Collectively, you should actually throw to the Food and Drink Federation, to the supermarkets. Why are your promotions skewed towards less healthy, highly processed foods? Why are they not skewed towards actually helping us to choose healthy choices?
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With The Times. Be not just informed, but well informed.
No, this is not the sound of a refreshing drink being enjoyed outdoors in the sun, but the sound of itchy eyes being relieved. Optrex Acti-Mist 2-in-1 spray helps relieve itchy and watery eyes. Now go and have that drink in the sun if you fancy. Optrex Acti-Mist, so you can open your eyes to spring.
Award-winning Howarth Homes presents another outstanding development, The Dairy, an exciting new collection of just 33 apartments moments from Hillingdon Underground Station and the A40. With completion mid-2020 and the potential to benefit from the surrounding area's future regeneration, there may never be a better time to buy. The Dairy launches off-plan on the 26th of April with prices from as little as $259,995. Discover more at howarthhomes.co.uk.
Hi, I'm Chloe from Network Rail, with some important news if you're travelling over either of the bank holidays this May. From Saturday the 5th to Monday the 7th of May, and from Saturday the 26th to Monday the 28th of May, our team of engineers will be working to deliver essential rail upgrades. Some services will be affected, so please check before you travel at nationalrail.co.uk/May or contact your train operator. Network Rail. Working for you.
Dacia, a car company unlike others. I like that. Europe's fastest selling automotive brand. I like it. The Dacia Sandero, a What Car Award winner 6 straight years. Like that too. And it's yours from just $6,995. Very likeable. Read the glowing reviews at dacia.co.uk from our lovely customers. What's not to like? Seems more and more people are warming to the Dacia way. You'll like it too. At participating dealers only.
What are the best things about working for yourself? Being the boss? Setting your own hours? Every day is bring your dog to work day? Bet you didn't say invoicing. Send customized invoices in a moment with QuickBooks. Know when they've been seen, paid, or are overdue, so you can stay on top of your cash flow and get back to more enjoyable things. QuickBooks, backing you. Available now for up to 50% off your first 6 months. For terms and conditions, visit quickbooks.co.uk.
Do you have a pension? Maybe you've got more than one. How do you know if they're in the right pension funds, making as much money as possible for your retirement? Answer is, you probably don't. At the Pension Works, our fully qualified independent financial advisors could add instant value to your retirement fund. Simply text the word YES to 83222 for your free Pension Works health check. That's YES to 83222 today. Your pensions working harder with the Pension Works.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Has Bojo blown it? Has the idea of giving an amnesty to 500,000 to 700,000 illegal immigrants, is that going to finish off his chances of reaching the top job of Prime Minister, the position that he's coveted so very much over the years? But, please tell me I'm wrong. Tell me it won't damage Boris, and tell me actually it's the right thing to do to wipe the slate clean. You can do that by calling 0345 6060 973. But a lot of you are really quite angry with Boris, and in a way, I'm not angry, I'm just bemused. He clearly is never going to ever change this record, which is why he's never going to become Prime Minister. That's my view. JC on Facebook says, Boris had the chance of being PM after the referendum. He bottled out. Well, there was that famous, wasn't there, Michael Gove turning against him and all that Shakespearean drama that we had in the week after the referendum back in 16. Steve says it certainly gives a new meaning to the thought that the UK is a soft touch. On Twitter, I don't think Bojo will ever become PM, not only because of his wrong-headed ideas about immigrants, he's just not up to it. Simples, says Ian. Well, there we go. James is a first-time caller from Sydenham. Good evening.
Yeah, evening, Nigel. Just a quick one.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm not a great fan of Boris Johnson, right? But what I wanted to ask you is, I seem to notice that any time there's an immigration argument come on, right, you're the first one to stick the boot in. But what I wanted to find out from you is, I think Boris Johnson made that statement on the back of the Windrush scandal, right? Because obviously that is a big scandal on its own. So, obviously, 750,000 immigrants, no, I don't think that is viable to have amnesty on.
No, the scale is huge, James, isn't it?
Yeah, that's too much. I mean, personally, I think you could whittle that down. There are people here who are immigrants who do work hard.
Yeah, no one's saying that's not the case, James, of course. And I agree with you. To some extent, he is overcompensating, in my view, for the anger around Windrush. I mean, I think that's... But if that's what he's doing, James, it's a big political misjudgment.
Yeah, what he should have done was basically not put the whole lot in the bag. You see, what the government don't do, when it comes to media, you guys have a habit of hyping everything up and taking it out of proportion. Personally, I think with the amnesty, obviously there are people who genuinely should get amnesty because they are the workers that most people know work hard.
But James, can I just stop you for one moment if I can?
Of course you can.
If they've come here illegally and we amnesty them, what message does that send to the rest of the world? It says virtually come on down, doesn't it?
Well, coming into the country illegally is a different scenario. There are people who come and sometimes, obviously, overstay the stay.
Yep.
And for whatever reason or not where they're coming from, have had reasons as to why all their families here, and sometimes go through that loophole that they can't get out, because there are a lot of black holes in the system as well, Nigel, that we can't always see. So sometimes
I'm sure that's right. I'm sure that's right. There are lots of different circumstances. And by the way, James, when you say that every time the immigration subject comes up, I'm the first to go into attack, you're absolutely right. Because, I don't think if I'd started talking about it back in 2003-04, I don't think we'd have had a serious debate on it. I don't think we'd have had a referendum where we talked about it a lot. It would have been just the preserve of the BNP. And what I was hoping, James, to do, I was hoping to make debating border controls an absolutely mainstream argument. And I think for a couple of years we did, but Boris is somewhat backtracking.
But Nigel, I've got one question I wanted to ask you, and I've always wanted to ask you because I always hear you on the radio, and I've got to ask you this one question.
All right.
When you was running that party, before you left, and you had your offices, you had one in Herne Bay, you had a few offices all over the place.
We did, yeah.
The Brexit thing came in, right? I wanted to always ask you, I've been dying to ask this question, why did you leave as soon as the Brexit kicked in? Because obviously, The party started to fall apart after you left.
Because, James, the answer is very simple. You know, it had had basically 20 years of my life. We'd won the referendum. I was getting out at the right moment. Had the government, James, if I thought that the snobby old Tories would even talk to me and try and use me in some way with the renegotiation, I would have stayed. But I made a couple of soundings in that week after the referendum to be told point blank I wasn't wanted. That's why I did it. James, great call. Thank you. Call again. Another first-time caller, Adam, who's calling from Leicester. Good evening.
Good evening, Nigel.
Hi.
I'm very pleased to speak with you because I tried very hard to get you interviewed on my program on Voice of Africa, which, of course, Elizabeth Jones was doing fantastic on the show.
OK, very good. So tell me, what is the view of Voice of Africa on amnesties for illegal immigrants?
Very, very welcome, because Boris has made a right call. This will neither enhance his political career to become the prime minister, or that will destroy him, because we're using two terms here which are wrong. One, illegal entry. Two, legal entry but overstayed their visas. If somebody had visa from Ghana, for instance, or Nigeria to visit the United Kingdom, and per circumstance he overstays his visa, he did not enter the country illegally. However, he has overstayed his visa.
Well, Adam, let's not split hairs. He or she who've done that are here illegally.
Yes, the person is here illegally.
And there are hundreds of thousands of people, Adam. There are hundreds of thousands of people doing this. Surely we owe it to ourselves as a country, and we owe it to legal immigrants not to allow this to happen.
Yes, Nigel, you and I believe that we should stop non-intervention in any way. And you and I believe that the borders should be checked and controlled. Therefore, those who are here already, who haven't committed any crime, who are working hard behind the shadows and helping the United Kingdom's economy, why can't we regularize them so that they can work and contribute immensely to the socio-economic...
Well, the argument, of course, Adam, is if they become legal, they start paying tax. I do understand that argument. Adam, I understand your point of view, and there are, a considerable number of people who will agree with you. But, Adam, my final question to you, what message does that send to the rest of the world? Doesn't it just say, do you know what? You can sneak into Britain on a visa, overstay your welcome, and you'll be able to stay anyway.
Nigel, you know what? Believe you me, there is an amnesty in the United Kingdom now. Any illegal immigrant with a child who is 7 years old can never be removed out of this country.
Yeah.
It is here, and per certain time, the person would definitely be regularized in this country. The children are going to the schools, having medical attention at the NHS at the expense of the...
And who's paying for all this? Who's paying for all this, Adam?
It's the taxpayer. So
yeah, well, there you go. And all right, and you can... the taxpayer's had enough. Adam, Voice of Africa, thank you, but the taxpayer, in my view, has had enough of this. My next caller is Arthur, which could become a very popular name in the next few days. Arthur from St Albans, good evening.
Hi, Nigel. How are you, sir? You okay?
I'm well.
A big fan of you.
Well, thank you. Now, is the royal baby going to be Arthur? Tell us.
Oh, I don't know. I hope it's a very old name.
It is an old name, but it could come back. So, Arthur, come on. What's your perspective on what Boris Johnson has said today?
Nigel, I agree with him, to be honest with you. Britain has always been one of the best countries, and the people are very famous of forgiving and tolerating. Now, my case, I came in 2000 illegally, okay, that's a bad thing to do, but obviously we came...
And you're still here, Arthur?
I'm still here, I'm British citizen. I got my status after 10 years, in 2010. Then I came, I was already dentist, and I couldn't do any dentistry because I was illegal, I didn't have any rights. And then as soon as I got my rights, I started doing my exams. Now I'm a full-time dentist. I'm practicing dentistry. I'm helping people, which we need. This country needs for hard-working, good people.
Arthur, where did you come from?
I'm from Armenia.
I mean, don't they need good dentists in Armenia?
They need a good dentist, but that time when I left Armenia, it was very bad. We had a war. It was a horrible situation. Obviously, I came to UK, and then I overstayed my visa. because I liked it. It was quite nice. I'm a big fan of democracy.
Arthur, I'm sure you liked it. It's a great country. But your story is the story of somebody who's a trained professional, who you clearly speak the language extremely well, better than the rest of us.
Oh, yeah, I could.
Better than the rest.
I couldn't speak English when I came.
Well, you've done that. You've done that. But Arthur, don't you see the problem that if we were to legalise 500,000 to 700,000 people who've either entered illegally or overstayed their visas, that just sends a message to the rest of the world that Britain's a soft touch. We can't afford it, Arthur.
We can. First of all, most of them, I know lots of illegal immigrants, they're working and they're paying taxes. They had papers in the beginning, so they just still undercover. They're using their papers, they're saying, trust me, I know doctors, they're working as a porters in a hotel because they don't have a papers to do the exam to become a doctor. Trust me. Secondly, you can put a big prize. You can put £5,000. If anybody wants to be legally, it has to be squeaky clean. It has to be working. I never ever claim any benefit in my life in UK from the day one. I work hard. I had the work permit that time, and I use it, and I never claim any benefit from the day one.
Do you think, Arthur, do you think you're typical of illegals living in this country?
I was one of the exceptions, to be honest with you, yes. But you've got a lot of them. I meet a lot of good people, illegal immigrants.
No, I'm sure you're right. But I will have a wager with you that not many are qualified dentists. It's one thing I would say. Arthur, on balance, has Boris done the right thing?
Yes.
OK, Arthur, thank you. Great call. Fascinating. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusive on LBC. It's now 7:30, and time for the news with Thomas Watts.
The father of seriously ill toddler Alfie Evans has lost his latest appeal to take his son to Italy for end-of-life treatment. The Court of Appeal has upheld the ruling by the High Court. Amber Rudd says she bitterly regrets failing to grasp the scale of the Windrush scandal sooner. The Home Secretary's faced calls to resign over the issues faced by Commonwealth-born British residents. TSB says its internet banking service is working at only 50% capacity. The bank has again apologised for problems which started after a major IT upgrade on Sunday night. LBC weather, showers dying out this evening for most of the country, some more rain in parts of northwest England and in Scotland, a low of 4 degrees.
LBC travel on the M25 is struggling clockwise approaching junction 26 for Waltham Abbey after a breakdown earlier. It's slow on the A13 eastbound approaching the Canning Town flyover. That's because a tanker has broken down, and in Acton there are queues on all the approaches to Gypsy Corner because the traffic lights aren't working, with delays on the A40 eastbound from Hanger Lane. On the tube, the Central Line has severe delays from White City to Ealing Broadway and West Ruislip, and on the trains the Southside Express has delays of up to 25 minutes between Liverpool Street and Stansted Airport. LBC Travel, I'm Katie Tyler.
This is LBC.
Andy's red-handed breakfast flatbreads.
I am never having a party again. I only invited a few mates over last night. Then before you know it, the whole house was full. It was all fine until Mum and Dad came back from holiday a day early. So I'm making up to them with my very own breakfast flatbreads. Smoky bacon, eggs and tomato under the grill, topped with fresh avocado. And extra chilli flakes for Dad.
Top your own flatbreads with Tesco crispy beach-smoked bagged bacon. Food Love Stories, brought to you by Tesco.
I put her tea out while she rabbits on about Hannah's birthday party. I make sure the chips aren't touching the fish fingers, and she gets something from the jar for eating all her peas. She needn't know what a struggle it was getting up at 2 p.m, how hard it is to avoid the ulcers when I brush my teeth, or how it feels taking 13 tablets a day. Because I might have cancer, but the most important thing is that I'm Sophie's mum.
A mum with cancer is still a mum. Our support line is here to help you get through the hard days. Because life with cancer is still life, and we're here to help you live it. We are Macmillan Cancer Support.
Buddy will go to any lengths to fetch. So, Buddy, go forth and do your thing. And Pets in a Pickle Pet Insurance will make sure you're protected through high-speed chases, mid-air collisions, and beyond. Get a free quote today at petsinaapickle.co.uk.
Ocean credit cards.
If you're looking for credit, go to checkocean.co.uk and see in seconds if you'll be accepted for an Ocean credit card before you apply. Checking doesn't affect your credit rating, and with a credit limit of up to £1,500, it's a no-brainer. Go to checkocean.co.uk right now and get an answer in seconds. 39.9% APR representative variable. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One is the exclusive lender.
Checkocean.co.uk.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Well, Emmanuel Macron has addressed the joint houses of Congress in the USA to denounce nationalism and isolationism, and he received a standing ovation, and he spoke about the unbreakable bonds between the US and France. He also spoke about the very special relationship between the USA and France. Are you listening, Downing Street? This is what happens when you invite people over and treat them nicely. Do you know what? They reciprocate. It's what human beings do. But then he went on, Macron, he went on to really slam. You know, he said, we will not let the rampaging work of extreme nationalism shake a world full of hopes for greater prosperity. It's always greater prosperity. Everyone that supports the New World Order, as they define it themselves, says it's about prosperity. And in some ways, folks, it is. It's about the prosperity of Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and the multinationals. It's about bureaucrats whose names you've never heard of and you can't remove, tens of thousands of who, across the West, earn more than the British Prime Minister. That is the wealth that Macron is talking about. And even if he was right, even if all of this did make us a little bit richer, is it worth sacrificing our national democracy for? And Macron is in many ways an impressive guy. As you know, those that are regular listeners, I met him last week, I went to a lunch with him. He is an impressive guy, but the kind of thinking that he represents is in serious decline across the West. Just look at the elections in Italy and Hungary and elsewhere. But one piece of quite good news. Trump's coming in July. He'll be here in mid-July. We haven't got the exact date. What we do know is there is a NATO summit that'll take place on the 11th and 12th of July. We don't know whether he'll come to London to get a warm welcome from John Bercow and Sadiq Khan and Jeremy Corbyn, or whether he goes straight to Scotland after the summit to play a round of golf. And, of course, by that time of the year, Her Majesty the Queen will, of course, be in Balmoral, up in Scotland. So, who knows what'll happen. There's also talk he may go to Dublin and visit Dublin as well and talk a bit about the negotiations on Brexit with the UK and Ireland. We'll see. But he's coming at last. Not a state visit, a working visit, but at least at last he is coming. So back to Boris Johnson, and we heard a plea, strong plea, before the break from an Armenian illegal dentist who came to the country and got naturalised and clearly very much loves the country. And it's a very powerful, compelling tale when someone says something like that. But we're talking here about 500 to 700,000 people. I don't think we can afford to do this. I don't think it's even right to do this. Right, on Twitter, Richard says, Boris for PM, why not? Pragmatic approach to immigration. Voted for him as London Mayor, would as PM. Well, Richard, I have to concede, he did do very well in the London mayoral elections. London has increasingly, chiefly because of demographic change, become a Labour city, and for Boris to win twice the way that he did was impressive, and there are people out there, Richard, that think he is doing the right... The trouble is, Richard, we have an amnesty for illegals now. We have another amnesty for illegals in 5 years, another one 5 years after that. You're not stopping anyone coming. There's no disincentive now, is there, to try to either get into Britain illegally or, simpler, come on a visa and just don't go. Nobody will ever find you. Alexander is calling from Plymouth. Hi, Alexander.
Good evening. I think I thoroughly dislike Boris Johnson. I think on this... yeah.
Is it? I mean, do you see him as sort of self-obsessed, or what is it, Alexander, that you see?
Definitely self-obsessed. You can see it in the way that he conducts himself, and this put-on buffoonish personality. He's intelligent, but he puts on this personality, and I think that works for some people. I think that's why he got the London elections. You can see the boondoggles that he's put up.
All right, yeah.
But on this, I think he's doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. I mean, it's obviously a political move to distance himself from the kind of Theresa May, Amber Rudd
mess
kind of section. Yes, very much the mess. my grandfather came from the Netherlands before the EEC, and he came over. He actually lived in a homeless shelter for the first couple of years when he came here. You know, he worked menial jobs and then worked up to actually owning his own company and becoming a British citizen. And what I'll say about people that do that is they if you treat them with respect and if you let them work inside the system, if you bring them inside the system, they will love your country. I mean, he was an absolute Anglophile when he died.
No, I mean, Alexander, that is an optimistic tale and appraisal of where we are, and I hope that if this happens, you prove to be right. But you know, we've just had a big referendum, a big Brexit referendum, where the key determining factor was that you know, a lot of people in this country think not only should we have control of our borders, but that fewer people should be coming every year. There is a strong desire, Alexander, out there to get us back to post-war normality for half a century of sort of net migration of 30, 40, 50,000 people every year. If you give an amnesty to nearly 750,000 people, you've just blown that apart, haven't you? I'm
not sure. I mean, if you looked at to look at the data and see how, you know, there was that interesting fact that the highest Leave voting places had the lowest immigration thing. I know that you talked to Nick Clegg about this in his podcast.
Yeah. I did, and the reason for that is, but the reason, Alexander, for that is that they don't want their culture changed. They like it as it is.
But even now, they're not having their culture changed. I mean, if there aren't any immigrants there, but you still think that, oh no, they shouldn't come in, but they're not. They're going where the jobs are. But I think that we should not detail policy based on uninformed opinion. I think we should base it on, you know, the data and how it actually acts.
Well, Alexander, whether it's right or not,
to be more expensive.
I mean, there's a lot of perception.
A bunch of people,
Alexander. There's a lot of perception out there, isn't there? There's a lot of perception out there, and ultimately, isn't the issue of illegal immigrants and whether they should be amnested or not? Isn't this a simple, old-fashioned question of what's right and wrong?
Yeah, but that's up for debate. I mean, you could say that
we're debating it.
Yeah, for sure. But you could argue that it'd be right for us as a country to have compassion and, you know, be forgiving of people that have broken our laws, but, you know, they're not particularly dangerous. Those that are dangerous should be in prison, for sure. But those that aren't and want to work inside the system, we should bring them inside. We should bring them inside the system, bring them inside the house, treat them as people, and let them say work it off.
All right, no, Alexander, you know, there are a significant number of people take that view. I sense it's a minority view, but it's a significant minority. And by the way, Alexander, I did go on Nick Clegg's podcast, and he's now coming on my LBC podcast. It'll be out next Monday. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much indeed. Farage, Against the Machine. You can go to lbc.co.uk. You can go to iTunes. That's where you can find it. Let's try Steve, first-time caller from Catford in South London.
Hi, Nigel.
Hello, hi, how are you?
Hi, not bad. Nigel, I am a fan of Boris Johnson, and I think the man is very intelligent. He has come up with a very, very good point. This is the third time he's saying that we should grant, we should regularize the status of illegal immigrants in this country. Nigel, people are surviving in this country, whether amnesty or not. Don't get me wrong, okay? And anytime there's a debate with immigration, Nigel, you are the first person to jump up and start saying things. Let me tell you that if you regularize the system and then you tighten the border, that's enough, because the people are here already anyway. All right? They are here already anyway. And let me tell you, during the referendum, the most section or the sector that carried the weight was immigration.
Yep.
And then at the end of the day, what happened? Were you able to send the people back home?
Well, the referendum, actually... No, Steve, hang on. You've asked me a question. I'm going to answer it, all right? In the referendum, the issue of illegal immigration barely surfaced. the issue was legal immigration. The issue was that the British passport said European Union on it, and therefore was available to nearly 500 million people. So the argument then, Steve, was a little bit different.
Yeah, but Nigel, what I'm saying is, these people are already in this country, all right? This is not the first time this number of that 750,000 people. I mean, it's even more than that. I can tell you that.
I'm sure you're right.
And
yeah.
This is the second or third time, fourth time this figure has come up, and nobody can even quantify how many people are living in this country illegally. But they are still there, and they're surviving. They're doing jobs. Some of them are even paying taxes into the system.
Steve, do you think there's any limit on the number of people that should be allowed to come into Britain?
Well, there should be a limit, but this is a system that was left unattended for a long time, right? And then now these people have come into this, wherever they came from, nobody knows, all right? So why don't you regularize the system? All right, it's been done in Italy. It's been done in many countries.
Because, Steve, you'll encourage more to come from all over the world. That's my answer to you.
No, Nigel, it doesn't work like that. Whether you control, whatever you do, these people are already here. So what Boris Johnson is saying, this is the third time, and he's not stupid. Boris Johnson is a very intelligent person, coming from a very good background, all right? And he is saying this consistently, that we should have amnesty for illegal immigrants, people who are here, who are contributing into the.
I tell you what, Steve. You argue the case with great passion and with great logic, but I think from Boris's perspective, this on top of the fact he clearly has absolutely no desire to reduce the numbers of people coming into Britain from the European Union legally. I think, Steve, whatever the arguments for and against, whatever Boris's intelligence or ability at Latin may be, I think this dooms him to become leader of the Tory party. It isn't going to happen. Steve, great call. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show exclusively on LBC. It's 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
Jeremy Corbyn has called on Theresa May to abandon bogus immigration targets. Is it time to drop the tens of thousands net migration figure?
Clive Bull on LBC.
Word in the woods is that 3 little pigs are looking to sell their homes quick. They seem to be in a spot of bother with a big bad wolf called Rick.
Come out, little piggies!
So they spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who can offer a guaranteed sale in as little as 48 hours at a fair price and a cash advance if you need one. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
This spring, spend your money as wisely as you spend your time. Discover the Skoda Fabia. With £2,000 towards your finance deposit, 6.2% APR representative, 3 years roadside assistance, plus save an extra £1,000 off list price when you take a test drive. Driven by something different. Skoda. With Solutions Personal Contract Plan, 18s and over, subject to status, T's and C's apply. Excludes Fabia S Plus. Indemnities may be required. Skoda Financial Services. Skoda.co.uk. Are you a landlord? Save time and money with Make Your Move. Visit makeyourmove.co.uk or text LET to 66777 now.
Ryanair, 30 years of low fares with over 200 destinations to choose from and great on-time flights. Isn't it time you booked your next break? Book your trip today on Ryanair.com or on the app from only $19.99 one way. Ryanair, low fares made simple. Limited availability. See Ryanair.com.
To find out more about our boiler installations and maintenance schemes, visit swaleheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Want to progress more in your career or run your own business?
With a business degree at GSM London, you can follow your bold dreams to success.
Degrees are awarded by the University of Plymouth, and at GSM London, you can start a degree without formal qualifications on our foundation year.
So why wait till October? Start a degree this June.
Search Have Bold Dreams at GSM London now.
GSM London. Have bold dreams.
Ella's one-handed stir-fry.
My friends used to say when you have your first kid, you'll always have your hands full. I had triplets, so I've had to learn to do everything one-handed. I have mastered the stir-fry. I take fresh veg, pork marinated in hoisin, and noodles, then stir it all into a wok. It's delicious enough to have again and again, and simple enough to do while I'm playing peekaboo.
Give your pork stir-fry extra zing with our hoisin and ginger marinade. Food Love Stories, brought to you by Tesco.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag #FarageOnLBC.
Well, we see the real Boris Johnson today when, for the third time in his political career, he reiterates his desire to give amnesties to illegal immigrants. Didn't hear much about that during the referendum itself, did we? A lot of you got some very, very strong views on this. If illegal immigrants have been here for over 10 years, are many of them ever likely to be caught by the police? No. Let's have an amnesty, a boost to the lives of people in our country and to the economy, says Anne. Well, Anne, the argument that if everybody's regularised, they all start paying taxes and we get less of a cash economy is tempting, I'll grant you, but what does it say to the rest of the world, and particularly coming from a government? Isn't it funny? On the one hand, we've had a mess made over people who've been here for 50 or 60 years, who came here back in the 1950s, and there's an admin muck-up, and I believe that's all it is, and yet on the other, we're prepared to say to people who've come here illegally, you can just stay. And there's something wrong with all of that, in my view. Even if we give an amnesty to just one illegal immigrant, before we know it, the aunts, uncles, nans and granddads and every other family member will be over claiming a right to live here. And that is a major problem. All the while the human rights legislation is in British law, something we incorporated but got from the European Union. I'm afraid, right problem. That whichever way you go with this, the only conclusion, even if you do wipe the slate clean, even if you do regularise people's tax affairs, is that actually it's going to result in a lot more people coming to Britain. And one of the main reasons we voted Brexit is we wanted fewer people to come. We wanted wages to go up, and we wanted to be able to get a GP appointment within the next 10 days. John is calling from Bromley. Hello, John.
Hello, Nigel. I just want to mention that you're one of my favourite people.
Well, that's very sweet of you. Thank you.
Just because you're a very consistent man, and it makes it really convenient to have a conversation with you.
Well, I'm delighted you're here, John. What do you make of Boris's call today?
I think Boris' call is a master stroke. He has just managed to get himself an extra million voters with one stroke. There are probably over 1 million voters in this country, potential voters for Boris Johnson, who are illegal immigrants who have been here for more than 10 years. So,
John, you're suggesting that this would buy Boris votes. That sounds third world and appalling.
So that's number one, if you buy him votes. Number two, a lot of these illegal immigrants are highly qualified. You can imagine what it takes for someone from Nigeria or from Zimbabwe to get an air ticket to come to the United Kingdom, considering the incomes that people get over there. There are doctors among them, there are engineers among them that have just been kept away from the formal economy simply because they have come into this country, they haven't been able to obtain papers. So, you will be...
John, shouldn't we feel some degree of guilt about this? If we're robbing, poor parts of Nigeria, which has an exploding population, as we all know, and if we're depriving them of doctors, that's not the right thing, is it?
Unfortunately, those people are never going to go back anyway. There is no way you're going to come up with the policy, even if I give you the button right now to be Prime Minister, there is no way you're going to get them to go back to Nigeria or to go back to Zimbabwe. You will never be able to pick them up from the population in the United Kingdom right now. So the only way to derive some form of benefit out of them is to then deploy all the nurses that are currently working as cleaners in the informal economy to become nurses in the NHS, because they actually have the experience as nurses.
Okay, and then all vote for Boris Johnson, John.
Oh, of course, they're all going to vote for Boris Johnson. You can expect them to do that.
Okay. Listen, John, thanks for the call. Charming. Well, there we are. John is basically accusing Boris of buying votes. There's 1 million of them. Do you know what? I think actually quite a lot of them wouldn't vote for Boris, but some of them might. I'm sure some of them would. Lynn says this is a slippery slope to no borders. Andrew says Boris trying to distance himself from his Brexit campaigner image and move towards a cuddlier version position that is acceptable to Guardian readers? Yes, Andrew, exactly what Osborne and Cameron did, and by doing that, they couldn't even beat Gordon Brown in 2010 and win a majority. They had to form a coalition government with Nick Clegg. And that was because people looked at Cameron, they looked at Osborne, and they said, do you know what? These people are not Conservatives. And I promise you that tonight and tomorrow there'll be people out there in market towns, in the shires, whose families have voted Conservative since before the First World War, who will look at what Boris has been saying on this and say he's not a Conservative. Because one of the things that the Conservative Party has always been associated with is border controls, law and order, the strong party. That's the message they've tried to give out at elections, and boy, with this, it isn't really very sustainable. David is calling from Virginia Water. Good evening, David.
Hello, Nigel.
Good to hear from you. So, Boris, I think Boris has made an absolute Horlicks of this, David. What's your view?
Well, he's very pompous. He's a buffoon. But what I'm trying to say is, all this... I believe anyone who enters this country illegally should never have nationalisation. They should never be allowed to stay. We've got enough legal immigrants in this country. Boris Johnson, he's not surrounded. Where he lives, he's got a private doctor, but he'll open the floodgates to everyone, Nigel.
David, you're so right. There is a very big class divide on immigration, and as I sort of mockingly said earlier, you know, there'll be rich houses tonight where somebody will say, oh, darling, isn't it lovely? The illegal nanny who lives in Mashed down the road in Ealing, she'll be able to get full citizenship and become legal. And I promise you those conversations, David, will be happening. The richer you are, the better open-door immigration is.
Well, the richer you are, the lesser it'll affect you, won't it?
Absolutely, but it also gives you cheaper domestic staff and all the rest of it. David, your view, perfectly clear. What about the companies and businesses employing the illegals? Should they go too? Well, they should be punished, that's for certain. I have to say, folks, I'm beginning again to think to myself, I've always been against ID cards. I don't believe that walking down Bromley High Street I should be stopped and asked to produce my papers, but I'm beginning to think that ID cards are going to become, frankly, impossible to ignore. I think we're going to have them, because that's the only way we can really find out who's here legally and who's here illegally, and you won't be able to get any services without producing an ID card. That's the only way we can find out, I think. David is calling from Westminster. Good evening.
Hello, Nigel. Yep, listen, Boris never says anything unless it's in Boris' interest. All he wants to do is score political points, making Amber Rudd and, what's her name, Theresa May look like 1950s racists.
Because he's the compassionate one, David, isn't he? He's the compassionate one. He's with it.
Well, he wants to be Prime Minister one day, but come on, he's right. You know, what are these people doing? They're probably scrubbing the floors on your local hospital and working and paying into the system. We live on a planet. Macron is right, and Boris Johnson, it is evolution, whether you like it or not, whether it's the banks or whoever, it's going to happen. Get over it. We live on a planet. We don't live in a country with borders. It's what we shouldn't do anyway.
So total free movement, David. The world's a lovely, wonderful place, and as many tens of millions that want to come can come. Should we give them all health care as well, David?
Well, no, but, you know, if they're paying into the system, they deserve to get out.
Right, OK, so if they're paying in, say, £5,000 a year of tax, should we, through that, find the money to educate their children, give them all free health care, allow their extended family when they retire to come and live here? You know, this argument that because they're paying into the system, they're paying their way, there are some cases in which that's true. But I tell you what, David, there are many in which it's not.
Well, yeah, but what is the population? What is the percentage of the population that's illegal?
Well, that's an
illegal.
Well, David, none of us know, but, you know, 65 million is the official figure. There's certainly a couple of million illegal immigrants in the country, and it's probably, the truth is, probably very much higher than that.
Well, it's a pittance, and if they're paying in, it's so what? You know,
David,
it makes no difference.
David, let me just read you a message and see how you respond to it. Lee from Dulwich says to me by text, we should reward those that play by the rules. I'm very disappointed in Mr. Johnson. Hasn't he got a point there, Lee, that those who come legally, you know, save and strain and stretch and do everything they can to legally come to this country, isn't this very unfair on them?
Well, no, quite. There are laws, and if we should certainly strengthen our borders if we're having illegal people coming in. There's nothing wrong with checking who's coming in and who's going out, but we don't. If we let them slip through the net, they make a few quid, pay for, work hard, pay the taxes, and have a kid. So what? You're going to make much difference down in Basildon or in Essex, is it? It's not really going to make much difference.
Well, I don't know, David. I think if there are millions of extra people, 2 million, I guess, but it could be a lot higher. If there are millions of extra people in this country, it does make a difference to people's lives. David, I thank you very much indeed. Stephanie on Facebook sums it up rather beautifully. Why, when someone has done something illegal, are they rewarded, yet people who do things the right way can be deported? With reference to Windrush. And I reckon that is comment, Stephanie, not of the day, but of the week, and we'll see if anybody can top that tomorrow. But I really like that comment. Boris will not become Prime Minister. His own party won't vote for him on this policy. That is my view. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. I'm back tomorrow night at 7. At 10, it's Ian Collins. Up.